If you guys enjoy what I do, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe. It really helps the channel and it's free and easy to do. Before we get started with today's video, I have an announcement to make. After years of telling other people's stories, I finally released one of my own. My novel Eternal Reign is available now in both ebook and paperback format for those of you who are like me and prefer to collect physical media. You can grab a copy right now on Amazon through the link in the description of this video. And now back to our regularly scheduled program. Lucienne, the leader of the Archers Guild in Gridania, lets the Warrior of Light know that another XIV ship has been seen flying over the 12's Wood. Seeing the thing made her think back to the Battle of Griffin Crossing. It was a fight with the XIV that happened 20 years ago, and it hadn't gone well for the Gridanians. But that's not the main reason she called the Warrior of Light. A very well-known archer known as the God's Bow has come back to the 12's Wood. His actual name is Jehantel, and he was a legend among the God's Quiver archers. He's the one archer that everyone who uses a bow would want to learn from. He's also a bard, one of the few whose songs are more than just catchy tunes. His songs actually help make the people around him stronger. Since he showed back up, a lot of people, even Lucienne, went to try to get him to train them, but he wouldn't teach any of them, at least not in archery. He's perfectly fine with talking about his songs. If it wasn't for the fact that the archers are so busy guarding the city, some of them might have taken him up on the offer. But since it's better to shoot arrows than music notes, it's not a good fit for them. But the Warrior of Light has the opportunity to learn a variety of different skills, so she goes off to Quarry Mill to see just what Jehantel can teach. The old man is happy to have a visitor, but he can't teach you any archery. He swapped his bow for a harp a long time ago, and he's not planning on picking it back up again. But he can still tell when someone has potential, and he can see that the Warrior of Light has the makings of a good archer, if she keeps shooting stuff. But he doesn't plan on helping her with that. He is surprised that even after he tells her that, she still wants to stick around and learn his songs, so he sends her off to meet a friend of his to see if she actually does have the potential to be a bard. His friend's a Moogle named Puckno Pokey, and he's really good at seeing if people have talent, so if he says you have the right stuff, then Jehantel will teach you. You find the Moogle, but he's in a pretty bad mood since he lost something important to him, but he becomes a little more talkative when he finds out who sent you. Apparently he's been trying to get the old man to become a permanent resident of the forest and play his special songs for the Moogles, but the man keeps turning him down. It's not all that surprising that he sees the same talent in you, since you are in fact the main character of the story. You can go back to the old bard and tell him that you have Puckno's seal of approval, but the Moogle needs a quick favor first. He had a charm that he wanted to give to Jehantel, but it got stolen while he was asleep. He knows where the thief went though, and he wants you to get his stuff back and take it to the old man when you go. This is probably the easiest fetch quest the Warrior of Light has done, so she finds the thing and takes it to the old bard. The old man knew the Moogle back when he first became a bard, and he had promised to stick around and sing a bit. At the time he was busy fighting though, and eventually something happened that had caused him to have to leave the wood altogether. Jehantel figured that training new bards who would pass through the area and sing would get the Moogle off of his back, but apparently that's not the case. But the Moogle wasn't lying when he said you had potential, and the fact that he sent you back with the charm that's actually a bard's soul crystal is proof of that. The Moogles only give those to people that they think are worthy of being bards. It holds the songs sung by bards of the past, and as you carry it around, you'll be able to draw out that knowledge. And since your skill with the bow will help you be a better bard, you'll learn music by shooting people with arrows. It doesn't make sense to you, but Jehantel thinks you'll understand as you get deeper into his training, and he may even get around to telling you why he stopped fighting in the first place. For now, all he tells you is that something drew him to the power that songs have to change people's emotions, and he's not talking about the music that people dance to when they've had a bit too much alcohol in a club. He's talking about songs with real power that can change the direction of a battle. Archers have always been a part of war, raining death down on the battlefield from a distance, but as the battles last, they get more chaotic, and it becomes harder for them to separate the people they should shoot from the ones they shouldn't. It's hard to stay focused in those situations, and one thing they would do to keep their thoughts in order was sing songs. Other people would hear the songs and it would make them fight harder and better. The generals of the armies noticed the potential benefits of those songs, but they didn't want to waste archers by sending them to train in this new skill, so new divisions of bards were created for the sole purpose of learning songs that could help strengthen the troops. The problem was these bards were missing actual combat experience or skill, which made their songs not have power, and they got a lot of people dead. Some spirits of those failed bards are supposed to be out in Raincatcher Gully, and as part of your training, Jehantel wants you to go there and free the tormented spirits, which should draw some songs out of the soul stone you have. Jehantel clearly knows what he's talking about because it actually works, and when you get back to him, he can see the change in you, which makes him get a bit more talkative about his past. He remembers when he was young and a bard came through his town singing songs that seemed to make him really popular with the ladies, which is probably the main reason why Jehantel decided to become a bard in the first place. Women do seem to have a thing for men who sing for some reason. Talking to that man let him know that a lot of wandering minstrels are actually former soldiers who had to find new ways to make a living after the battles were done. Some became mercenaries or adventurers, while others took the things that they saw and made songs out of them. The things they sang about made great stories, so they were always able to make money performing here or there. The problem with that came from the need to always tell bigger and better stories, which led to a lot of bards just making stuff up to impress people, something you've seen with every extreme trial the wandering minstrel has unlocked for you. These made-up stories didn't have the same power over people's emotions, so while people still enjoy them, they don't have any real magic. The Mughals, who are all about singing magical songs, noticed that mankind was losing the power of song, so they collected all of the bard soul crystals that they could find, so they could give them to people who could bring the real power back into the order. Once the history lesson is over and done with, Jehantel wants to know if you've ever heard a very specific song called the Ballad of the Vainglorious Fool. Since it wasn't on the list of things you kept on your playlist, he of course has to tell you about it. It was a song about the massacre of Griffin Crossing, a battle that happened a few decades ago and cost a lot of Gridanians their lives. It's an important story, but he wants you to go to Welwick Wood and put down a pair of owl goats that have been on a rampage since their child died. After you handle that very random bit of business and make it back to him, he gets back to telling you the story. It follows an archer from the god's quiver who was the best they had ever seen and was pretty arrogant because of his skill. His arrogance got an entire squad killed at Griffin Crossing. The archer was supposed to be standing guard, but he thought his skills could be put to better use, so he headed off on a mission of his own, and while he was gone, everyone got killed. There's a lesson in that story, and Jehantel wants you to think about it while you escort him to the burial site of some of the soldiers who died in that battle. He wants to put some flowers on their graves, so you head off with him to do just that. While the two of you are out there, some Ixali attack. Jehantel tries to shoot them, but he keeps seeing all of the people he got killed, which makes him not be able to use his bow at all, so he runs off and leaves you to deal with the beastmen alone. After you do what you always do and put an end to your attackers, you find the old bard who finally admits that the reason he doesn't teach people archery anymore is because he can't use his bow. I'm pretty sure the Warrior of Light already figured this out, but he was the man who had got his whole squad killed. After that day, he had been haunted by what he'd done, and he hadn't been able to pick up a bow since. Seeing you in action lets him know that he doesn't have to worry about you making the same mistakes that he did. He thinks you have what it takes to be better than him, which proves that you're worthy of wearing the uniform of the bards. He'd gotten it from Pucknopoki when the Mughal had deemed him worthy of carrying the soul of a bard. Of course, that was before the whole massacre thing. After that incident, Jehantel had started wandering around looking for a place to die. And while he wandered around the world, he threw the bard clothes in some very hard to reach places so no one would ever be able to find them. He figured that if what the Mughals said about the clothes choosing their wearer was true, then they'd find a way back to him eventually. He had never really considered the fact that they might be meant for someone else until you showed up. The good news is he remembers where he put them. The bad news is they're all over Eorzea. So after spending a lot of gil on teleporting around and a lot of time flying to some obscure locations, you track down 4 of the pieces and head back to the old bard. There's only 1 piece of the armor left to complete your set. The last time Jehantel had been in Ul'dah, he had seen the last piece of his bard gear in a shop window. Since he hadn't seen it in decades, he figured it was a sign that he should get it and track down a worthy successor. That was when he came back to the 12's Wood and immediately got swarmed by archers wanting him to teach them how to shoot. Out of all of the candidates, the only one who was interested in learning more than better ways to kill people from a distance was you. You've proven yourself to be a worthy heir, and you've given him the motivation to finally go back to the spot where his friends had died, so he can use the magical songs he learned to finally put their souls to rest. And he obviously wants you to come with him, so the two of you head off to Kurthus. His music draws out a lot of Ixali who try to kill you both, and since the old bard still can't fight, you have to do all of the work yourself. You do your thing and put the creatures down, but one of them is not as dead as it looked. It attacks the Warrior of Light from behind, and not wanting to see someone else die because of his failure, the old man finally shoots his bow for the first time in decades, and because in fantasy world skills don't get rusty when you don't practice, the man's aim is still good so he doesn't accidentally shoot you. Not only did he find a worthy heir to his skills, that student managed to help him put his demons to rest. making you more than deserving of the final piece of his armor and the full title of Bard. Now that your training is done, the two of you leave as equals, Jehantel heading off to rejoin the God's Quiver, while the Warrior of Light moves on to her next adventure, which will likely have their paths cross again in the not too distant future. Jehantel's been looking for the Warrior of Light, and because this is how stories work, she shows up right on time. Since you last saw him, he's been training members of the God's Quiver, and the experience has made his songs more powerful, which he thinks will help you out too. Since anything that makes you stronger is always high on your priority list, the Warrior of Light goes with him to Gridania, where there's a guy that he wants to introduce you to. The guy's name is Sanson, a captain in the Order of the Twin Adder who is very interested in the power of songs. He wants to set up a new unit of the Twin Adders that adds bards to the mix, because he thinks that will make the soldiers more effective. Because of that, he went to the God's Quiver to see if they were willing to work with him. They weren't all that interested in the idea since they aren't all that sure about how powerful the bard songs actually are, and they'll rather focus on the surefire ways of fighting like filling people up with arrows. But that little delay didn't stop Sanson from trying harder. He studied old tomes and even talked to the Mughals to find some evidence of Bard's usefulness in battle. What he found are hints about a song that's supposed to have the power to instantly end a battle. It's called the Ballad of Oblivion, and Sanson figures that if he can find it, he'll be able to convince them that he's right about the bards. He's about to have a meeting with the Quiver at that very moment, and since he is about to talk about the bards, Jehantel figures that the two of you being at the meeting couldn't hurt, so you follow him. The Quiver still isn't convinced, although the prospect of a song that is basically an I win button for battle does sound interesting. Sanson says the song comes from somewhere in Western Kurthus, and he wants to go and find it. He just needs the Quiver to send a bard with him since he isn't exactly the most musically inclined person. They're willing to send someone with him, but Jehantel only just started training the troops, so there aren't exactly a lot of bards to choose from. Even so, every soldier is needed, so before the Quiver sends anyone off with Sanson, they want to see if he's physically fit enough to lead an expedition, so they want him and the bard that they're going to send with them to deal with the few enraged treants out in the 12's Wood. Jehantel doesn't think the Quiver is planning on sending anyone at all, so he wants you to join Sanson's expedition and help him pass this little trial, as well as help him hunt down the ballad. While Sanson did need your help to deal with the creatures, the Quiver hadn't hung him out to dry. They did send a bard to help him. His name is Gidalo, and apparently he's not high up on the list of Sanson's favorite people. That's probably because he seems kind of annoying, while Sanson is a bit uptight. However, he is one of Jehantel's best students, so while his personality is lacking in pretty much every area, his skills are top notch. So if the two men can keep from killing each other, then the mission might actually turn out okay. With the trial done, you all head back to Gridania to let the Quiver know that it's over and done with, which officially gets Sanson's expedition sanctioned. So the Warrior of Light, Gidalo, and Sanson head off to Ishgard to get their hunt for the Ballad of Oblivion underway. When you get to the city, Sanson gets right on hunting for information about the song, while Gidalo heads off to do the more important work of tracking down some friendly Ishgardian women. It doesn't take long for his womanizing to cause Sanson some problems. One woman that he was flirting with said that her boyfriend had a better singing voice than Gidalo, which made the bard jealous, so he left the city to track the boyfriend down and prove that he is in fact not a better singer than him. The boyfriend's actually a knight, so Sanson thinks he's likely to stab Gidalo if he bothers him, so the two of you head off to Falcon's Nest to find the bard before he gets himself killed. The knight you're looking for is out on patrol and Gidalo went out after him, but his unit should have been back by now, which means something bad has happened. So the Warrior of Light and Sanson head out to see what you can find. You find Gidalo helping the knights fight off some wild animals, and after you help them deal with things, you find out that what Sanson thought the bard was doing was completely the opposite of what actually happened. The knight's girlfriend had been so excited about some news that she had wanted to get a message to her boyfriend, and Gidalo had decided to deliver it. That news was she's pregnant. While Gidalo had been in the taverns, he had heard the stories about a knight who spent a lot of time singing, so he went to ask his girlfriend about him. The woman had been hard to get information out of since she was so excited about the news, so Gidalo had decided to just go talk to the man himself, which turned out to be for the best because if he hadn't been there, it was very likely that the child would have been growing up without a dad. Since the knight's a fan of music, he's heard of a woman who sings songs that sends the souls to the heavens, which could be the Ballad of Oblivion that you're looking for, and since you helped him out, he'll try to find the woman, and when he does, he'll let you all know. Even though Gidalo's little side mission turned out to be a step in the right direction, Sanson still finds a way to complain about it. Gidalo, however, is good at ignoring people, so he heads back to the city while Sanson keeps blabbering on and on about how they're a team, and they should both be hunting for the ballad together. What he actually means is you all should be doing it the way that he thinks it should be done. But since the bard makes it pretty clear that he's not going to do that, the two do their own thing until the knight sends news on your next target. The woman that the knight mentioned is a soldier stationed at the convictory, so once Sanson gets that news, you all head over there to talk to her. Her name is Selene, and she flat out refuses to sing the song for you all. Not only does she not want to, she doesn't have the time. The dragon numbers in the area have been growing steadily, and a group is getting ready to go out and deal with them. Thinking on his feet, Sanson decides to volunteer you all to help them with the dragons so you can be close just in case Selene starts to sing the song. You help with the creatures, but that doesn't stop some of the knights from dying in the battle. That's when you learn why Selene didn't want to sing the song in the first place. It's a funeral hymn, not a weapon. So she only sings it when she lays her friends to rest. So naturally she wouldn't have wanted to just sing the song, because once she does, it's probably because someone died. She does admit that she should have told you all that in the first place, which would have saved you some time, but what's done is done. She learned the song from a historian named Silvio, who's out in Tailfeather, so if anyone knows what you're looking for, it'll probably be him, which means it's time for your trio to head off to another area. Silvio's expedition is getting ready to come back in a little while, but things go wrong pretty much as expected. A group of Nath attacked his team and took them captive. Luckily, one of them managed to escape to go and get help, and he just so happened to run into you and the others. Since there's a good chance the Nath are going to sacrifice the people to summon Ravana, you all head off to save them. Doing what you do best, that being making things that are alive transform into a less alive state, you, Sanson, and Gitolo manage to free Silvio. Once you get him back to Tailfeather, he's more than willing to tell you all he knows about the Ballad of Oblivion. Legend says that a saint with the mastery over poetry had the power to end battles with his songs from the heavens. And that's pretty much all the man knows about the ballad. Gitolo's starting to get the feeling that the entire thing is fake, and he thinks it's about time to head back to Gridania. Sanson's not willing to give up, especially since he's pretty sure he knows why the gods Quiver were willing to send him and Gitolo out in the first place. Both men were annoying for one reason or another, and the Quiver wanted them gone. They also want them to fail, which would put an end to Sanson constantly trying to change the way things are run with the bards. So he pretty much can't go back home empty-handed. Gitolo doesn't care one way or another, so as far as he's concerned, Sanson can hunt for the thing himself. He thinks Sanson only sees it as a means to an end and doesn't really care all that much about the song or what it means to be a bard in general, which is part of the reason why Gitolo doesn't really like the man. Sanson wasn't actually trying to be disrespectful though, and while he refuses to admit it, he actually thinks Gitolo is the perfect bard to prove how effective they'll be when paired with other soldiers, since the man is actually talented, but he doesn't know how to tell him that. Regardless, he figures the man will eventually rejoin the hunt. Not like it matters, since at the moment Sanson has no leads. Silvio said the mention of the heavens in the legend was talking about a voice from the sky, which sounds ridiculous, but that's only because he didn't realize that Mughals live in the clouds in the churning mist, and the legends could very well be talking about them. Since the Mughals sing a lot, that's a real possibility, so Sanson wants you to take him to them after you leave a message with Silvio to tell Gitolo where the two of you are going. You don't have to leave a message at all, since Gitolo is talking to the man when you go to see him. The bard has been watching you and Sanson the whole time, but he didn't hear your conversation about the Mughals. Once you tell him about it, Silvio thinks it's a good possibility that they would know about the ballad, and he thinks Gitolo should put his ego aside and go with the two of you to finish the quest. The bard says he'll think about it, but neither you nor Sanson's gonna wait around for him, so you head off to the Churning Mist. Moglin, the leader of the Churning Mist Mughals, does know about the Ballad of Oblivion. It's forbidden to Mughals, and he had to tell Magda, one of his own bards, to stop looking for it a little while ago. He's clearly not all that focused on keeping the Mughal from finding the song though, because he tells you where Magda is, so obviously you and Sanson go to hunt him down. When you find the little Mughal and convince him that you're not about to eat him, he's happy to learn that you're both looking for the same thing that he is. It's impossible for him to find the song by himself since it's so dangerous. But since you and Sanson want the same thing, you all team up with him and head back to Mogholm to see if Moglin has changed his mind about telling you more about the ballad. He has, which makes it seem like he really wasn't all that against the idea of you finding it in the first place. Your group seems strong enough to deal with the challenge, but Moglin thinks you're all missing something important. It's your other crew member who still hasn't joined you, although you saw him skulking around behind you a little while ago. Magda wants to wait for Gitolo to join you before you head off, but after a while it doesn't seem like he's coming, so you decide to continue without him. The legend says that the ballad is in the Sea of Clouds, which means you'll need an airship, so Sanson heads back to Gridania to get one ready for you. Magda pulls you aside when Sanson leaves to let you know that he talked to Gitolo, and the bard has no plans on joining you again, So Magda stole Sanson's journal for you to give to the man since he thinks that might help change his mind. The bard's not all that happy that Magda told you where he was hiding, but he is interested in reading Sanson's journal. The thing is so full of songs that it almost seems like Sanson wishes he were a bard, and that kinda makes Gidelo rethink what he said to the man. It also makes him a bit ashamed of how he treated him, and because of that he doesn't feel like he deserves to be there when you finish your mission. So the Warrior of Light, Sanson, and Magda hop on an airship and head to the spot in the Sea of Clouds where the ballad is supposed to be. As soon as you get there, Magda senses something powerful, which means the ballad is likely there. There's a large stone that Sanson feels is calling to him, but Magda has seen the markings on it before. They're the runes put on a sealing stone meant to lock away something nasty, and those seals break if anyone touches them. The problem is he doesn't tell Sanson this before the man touches the stone, which instantly releases a siren named Legeia. Turns out the Ballad of Oblivion was the siren, and that thing had used its powerful songs to wipe out an entire tribe of Mughals, which means you can't let it roam free. Since Sanson let it out, he figures it's his job to stop it, and of course Magda and the Warrior of Light will help him deal with it. As a surprise to no one, Gidelo stowed away on your ship and followed you all there, and he joins the fight to help you bring down the siren. Once the fighting is done, Gidelo shows Sanson his journal, which the man is not exactly happy that he took, especially since he needs to use it to write his report. While he does do everything by the book, Gidelo tells him that writing that their mission to find the song led to freeing an ancient Mughal murderer might be a bad idea. Instead, he can report on how well the bards performed on the mission, and how combining your abilities basically created your own Ballad of Oblivion. Sanson agrees that writing that may be a good idea, but regardless, it's time to head back home, so you all make your way back to Gridania where Sanson goes to make his report, while you tell Jehantel about everything you learned on your trip, and the abilities you gained on the way. The next time the Warrior of Light runs into Jehantel, the old bard lets her know that Sanson's proposal to form a unit that has bards in it finally got approved, and he's building a team for his first mission at this very moment. When Sanson told him about this, he also said he wanted to ask the Warrior of Light for a favor. It's pretty obvious what that favor is, so the two of you head off to Gridania to meet up with him. As a surprise to no one, Sanson wanted you to join his team for their first mission, since the main thing they're missing is experience. He has Gidelo getting transferred to the squad too, and between the three of you, any mission should be pretty easy to accomplish, which will prove that it wasn't a mistake to add bards to the ranks. Jehantel wants this little endeavor to succeed too, so you agree to join up, and you head off with Sanson to get your first orders. The twin adders are happy to have the Warrior of Light on board since your help was the main reason why Sanson's last mission turned out well. The adders have gotten an anonymous letter that makes some claims that aren't exactly popular, and they want Sanson and his new squad to find out how true they are. There is a book that is said to have some secrets about the Autumn War, and the person who wrote the letter is offering to give it to the adders if they send their best soldiers to meet with him. The Autumn War was one that happened 100 years ago between Gridania and Alamigo, so Sanson doesn't really see how any news about it would matter all that much outside of a history class. But the higher-ups think that this could be important, so they don't want to ignore the letter, especially since the twin adders are involved with helping free Alamigo. Some Gridanian citizens don't think they should be helping Alamigo at all. They still see Alamigo as their enemy since a war fought only 100 years ago isn't that easy to forget. So if anything comes out that could be used to reignite the anger from that war in more citizens, it could lead to people attacking the already weakened Alamegans. So you, Sanson, and Gidelo, who shows up late and complaining as to be expected, are ordered to keep whatever this anonymous person has found from going public. So the three of you head off to the Nine Ives to meet this mysterious individual. The man who sent the letter is called Norval, and while what he said was true, he doesn't actually have the book that he was talking about. He knows it exists because one of his ancestors fought in the Autumn War, and he learned about it after all of the fighting had stopped. Norval learned about it from his parents, and he always dreamed of finding it, but since the book is somewhere in Alamigo, before recently going to look for it would have been a good way to get dead. Now that Belsar's wall has fallen, there's a safe way into Alamigo, and he can go on the hunt for the book. The only problem is, just because there's a safe way in doesn't mean Alamigo is safe, and since he's not a soldier, going exploring will either see him getting murdered or eaten. That's why he reached out to the adders. He needed help on his hunt, and since Gridania would benefit from the information, he figured getting help from the adders was the best way to go. Sanson doesn't like the fact that Norval is basically holding his knowledge hostage if you don't take him with you, but neither Gidelo nor the Warrior of Light care all that much, so once Norval agrees to follow all of Sanson's orders, you all head to Castrum Orange out in Alamigo to get ready for your hunt. When you all get there, Sanson wants to get the hunt underway immediately, but Norval thinks it'll be a good idea to get a feel for the area before you all just rush off to uncharted territory. It won't be hard for Sanson to get permission to keep his squad at the base, and while he does that, Guidolo does what he does best, and that's going around getting information of varying degrees of usefulness out of the people. It takes almost no time for Sanson to get annoyed with Norval. Granted, he gets annoyed by pretty much anybody, but the fact that he thinks the new guy is more annoying than Guidolo says a lot. In the short time that you've all been at the castrum, Norval has annoyed pretty much every soldier in the area by asking them 1,000 questions, and trying to get any info he can on the location of this long-lost book. Guidolo has been doing his usual mingling, which means he's probably learned something useful, so Sanson sends you to track him down while he keeps Norval out of trouble. Guidolo has learned a bit, but he's still sifting through the more important bits, so he's not ready to give his report yet. But he does have something that you can help him with. There have been some bandit attacks in the area, and they're attacking everyone from regular citizens to full-on soldiers. The other day they attacked a whole squad that was on patrol. A Twin Adder scout is late checking in, and Guidolo thinks he might have had a run-in with the bandits, so he wants you to go out and hunt for the guy. He would go himself, but he doesn't want to get that far away from Norval, since the man has been acting odd since you all got to the castrum. The Warrior of Light finds the scout in the middle of getting attacked by the bandits. After she makes sure they won't bother anyone else, the scout lets you know that the bandits didn't just accidentally bump into him. They seem to know what route his patrol would take, despite the fact that the Adders change their routes every day. The bandits seem to be trying to keep him and his patrol from going somewhere, which is news that he needs to share with his bosses, and some news that you should probably share with Sanson and the others. Sanson's not exactly happy to hear that Guidolo sent you off to deal with the bandits alone, sticking to his theme of being mad about pretty much everything. Guidolo doesn't care as usual, and he also makes it pretty clear that he doesn't trust Norval, especially since it's clear that the man's hiding information from you all, despite the fact that you're all supposed to be working together. He hasn't even told any of you exactly what you're supposed to be looking for yet. The man finally decides to share a bit of information once Sanson points this out. The book is supposed to be in a place linked to Gilbarde, the general who led the Alamegan army during the Autumn War. That's an interesting coincidence since the masked bandits have been attacking people most frequently around the area known as the Schism, a place that's devoted to the Fist of Rhalgr, which Gilbarde worshipped. The bandits might be after the same book that you all want. Since that's a real possibility, Norval thinks you all should speed up your search, and he heads off to ask more questions, despite the fact that Sanson told him not to. Guidolo wanted the man to go anyway because he needed to talk to the Warrior of Light and Sanson alone. Apparently some soldiers have seen Norval sneaking out of the camp without telling any of you. The man is plotting something, and Guidolo thinks that it has something to do with the bandits. Instead of confronting him, Sanson wants to let the man keep doing what he's doing so you all can follow him. Now that they know that Norval is up to something, Sanson starts to notice that he's actively trying to keep you all from heading out to look for the book. It's almost like he just wanted you all to help him get to Alamigo, then he could ditch you. So far, none of you have been able to figure out where he's sneaking off to, and those bandit attacks on the Alliance patrols are starting to get worse. The fact that they always know where to strike proves that someone is feeding them information, and that someone is probably Norval. Since they couldn't find out where he was going, Guidolo and Sanson started watching him so closely that he stopped having chances to sneak away. They figured that would make him sloppy the next time he had a chance, and to make him take that risk sooner, they want you to give the man some false but believable information. They want you to tell him that Sanson got called into a meeting, and Guidolo got so drunk that he can't see straight. They figure Norval will take that opportunity to sneak away, giving the three of you a chance to follow him to wherever he's going. The plan works perfectly, and the three of you follow the man to some ruins where you catch him talking to some bandits. The bandits are working for him, and they've found Gilbarde's journal. Norval's plan is to bring it back to Gridania and spread the knowledge to the public. Apparently what it says is so bad that he thinks it'll make Gridania stop supporting Alamigo. The secret has something to do with Vanshalon, the general who led the Gridanian forces in the Autumn War before he got sick and died, which nearly made Gridania lose the war. Seeing as how Norval and his people are trying to start up a new war with Alamigo, you all attack him and interrupt his plans. His group of bandits were of course no match for you, and in the fighting Norval drops the journal. He's fine with you all reading it so you can learn the truth about what really happened to Vanshalon, and once you do, you'll see that the Alamegans don't deserve help. Because none of you make the smart decision to finish him off, Norval gets away, but not before letting you know that he's related to Vanshalon. Once you read the book, it starts to make sense why the man isn't all that fond of Alamegans. During the Autumn War, Vanshalon had set up a peace talk with Gilbarde. The man accepted, then poisoned the general while he was off guard, which disproves the fact that he died of an illness. If it comes out that one of Gridania's greatest heroes died of poison at a peace talk, the war really might start back up. Sanson's too honest for his own good, so he thinks the people have a right to know the truth, but he knows that if he turns the book in, his superiors will bury the thing to prevent a war. Then again, they might use it to blackmail the Alamegans because no political situation is complete without someone doing something underhanded. Since Sanson is in charge, it's up to him whether or not you all turn in the book, and he decides what to do by the time you all get back to the castrum. The journal says that one of Vainchilon's sons, Landronel, was at the meeting too, and he managed to survive. For some reason, he kept the murder a secret and spread the lie that his dad died of a sickness. The fact that the man's son hid the murder to save the two nations makes it clear that just releasing the journal to the public is not the right thing to do. But keeping it secret isn't right either. So Sanson decides to turn the journal in to the Adders, but with the stipulation that they will reveal the truth one day. That's cute and naive, because what would actually happen is he'd turn the book in, make his demand, then he'd suddenly be found dead from 3 self-inflicted arrow wounds to the back of his head. Before you all get to head off and do what in the real world would be signing up to end your own lives, an Adder shows up to give you all a letter that came from Norval. He wants to talk to the Warrior of Light alone before you all run off with the journal. It sounds like an obvious trap, but setting a trap for the Warrior of Light is probably the easiest way to get yourself killed, so Sanson doesn't see any reason to stop you from going. When you get to the meeting spot, you do get attacked by some of Norval's people because they aren't exactly smart, so you put an arrow in each of them before heading back, only to find that Sanson is gone. Not long after you left, a new letter came saying for him to come with you, so he decided to follow you. The fact that he was dumb enough to do that instead of realizing that the first letter was meant to distract you while they took him makes him seem like even more of an idiot, and it doesn't say much for Guideloux's intelligence either. The two of you go to try and find him, but all you find is his book and a message left in blood, saying that he's been taken, and they'll send a message to the Adder's Nest telling them what it'll cost to get him back. Normally you just attack their base and slaughter everyone to get your friend back, but since neither of you know where it is, you head back to Gridania to let the Adders know what happened. Guideloux tells them everything, but he keeps the journal, which they aren't exactly happy about. But he's pretty sure that if he handed it over, the Adders would let Norval kill Sanson to get him out of the way. He's definitely right about that, so all that's left to do is wait for Norval's demands to get there. What he wants is obvious. He'll free Sanson once you release the journal's contents to the public. The higher-ups refuse the demands immediately and send out an order to kill Norval and his people. Gridania doesn't negotiate with terrorists, so they're pretty much abandoning Sanson. Guideloux isn't happy with the order, and since Connie Senna had no hand in giving those orders, Sanson's commanding officer isn't planning on following them anyway. He's already asked the Lancer and Archer guilds for help in finding Sanson so you can mount a rescue. He sends Guideloux off to let Giantel know what happened, and not long after that, word comes in that Norval and the others have been found in the 12's Wood near Alder Springs, so you all rush off to save Sanson. The Archers and Lancers deal with Norval's sentries while you and Guideloux attack the man himself. Once you finish beating him, because that was obviously what was going to happen, he tries to run away. Since he's surrounded, that doesn't work. Even though he's been beaten, he still can't understand why you would all protect Alamigo after what they did to Gridania. But what Norval didn't realize is that Vainchilon's main goal was peace at all costs. Something Giantel knows personally since he's old enough to have met the man's son, who had seen his father murdered and decided to keep it a secret. If the truth had come out, the war between the two nations wouldn't have stopped without becoming much more bloody. So to honor his father's wishes, Landronel kept the secret. Norval feels pretty bad about the fact that this bit of information pretty much invalidates everything he worked his whole life to accomplish. But Sanson still thinks the world should know the truth, and he vows to reveal it in a way that won't start a war. That way Vainchilon's sacrifice won't have been a waste. Norval accepts this, not like he has much of a choice since he's definitely going to jail. But since it's all done, you all head back to Gridania where Sanson turns over the journal after getting a promise that the information will be released one day. Pretty sure he won't live to see that day, but for now all he can do is wait and see. There have been a lot of rumors about what happened to the Warrior of Light when she fought at the Gimlet Dark, so Giantel is happy to see that you aren't in fact dead. Sanson has apparently been worried sick about you, so it's only right that you head over to Gridania to let him know that you're okay. He's happy to see you, but he's been pretty busy since the last time you saw him. His unit has been knee-deep in the battle with the Empire and the fighting has been pretty brutal. They would have been wiped out countless times if it weren't for Guideloux's songs giving them an edge in the fighting. The other bards in the unit were pretty useless and they aren't exactly proud of their performance. The power from their songs was unstable, and a weapon that might not fire when you need it isn't exactly useful. Bard songs get their power from the bard's desire to help their allies, and Giantel is pretty sure that them wanting to help wasn't the problem. They were probably just getting the jitters from being in battle for the first time. Sanson wanted Guideloux to train the new recruits so they wouldn't freeze up in combat, but he refused because he didn't think that their songs have heart.
The man's not all that nice, but he knows what he's talking about when it comes to being a bard, so Jehantel agrees that the new recruits have to learn how to put their heart into their songs if they want them to have any real power. He thinks the best way to get there is for them to hear an expert perform, and since the Warrior of Light is right there, they don't have to look far to find one. Sanson and Gitalo have been bragging about you to all of their recruits, and they pretty much idolize you, so hearing you play will work wonders for them. Jehantel will perform with you since he's wanted to do that for a while anyway. Sanson thinks that Gitalo will actually participate if he knows that you're going to perform, so he wants you to go and get the man. He's been seen hanging around the East Shroud, so you all head off to see if you can hunt him down, without bringing the new recruits because if Gitalo sees them, he'll probably run away. When you find him while he's excited to perform with you, he's not all that thrilled about doing it for the recruits who he thinks are about as uptight as Sanson. He doesn't think they have what it takes to be bards, but he'll put on a show with you just because he's always wanted to do that, not to try and help the soldiers. Sanson's figured out the perfect place to perform this little concert, and it's on an island in the Sea of Clouds, since that's where your big hunt for the Ballad of Oblivion had happened, and the place just so happens to have a nice view. Sanson goes to hire an airship, and you all climb aboard and head to the Sea of Clouds. Seeing professionals at work is one of the best ways to improve your own skills, and with the Warrior of Light being an adventurer who's seen a lot of stuff, the three bards have enough material to make a brand new song for the recruits to listen to. Seeing how something is done is still only the first step. The new bards still need a hands-on teacher if the lesson is gonna stick. Gitalo finally agrees to do it when he feels like it, which isn't right now. So while the new bards have a teacher, it will probably be a long time before they actually learn anything. This concludes the story of the bard. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like it, comment, share it, and subscribe. Donate to the channel if you can, and I'll see you all next time.